And we're live. Is
Hello.
that is that
Is that
your bird your bird today, Adrian?
No, that's mine. Hers doesn't sound that loud.
it doesn't talk?
He he actually swears. You guys just aren't close enough to hear him.
Well, my African gray was that way too. He was bad.
I blame my children because I don't talk that way around a bird.
Um, well, my bird came to me cussing, and then I didn't help the situation, obviously. And I'm sure where he's at now with Carl, it's not any better.
Yeah.
So,
This
because Carl's had parrots for years, at the old house we lived next door to him, and his parrots have always sat out in the yard and cussed and bitched and ride around on the lawnmower with him and call him a fucker and stuff like that. So,
I've been trying to teach Winston to say mother trucker, but he just isn't buying it. He knows there's
he's,
no such thing as a mother trucker. So
I was going to say, he knows it's not authentic.
right. He's an
If you were
authentic.
trying to teach, if you were trying to teach him motherfucker,
Uh, Actually, he does say that. I've been trying to teach him to unsay it. And
right?
my
Well, you should teach him son of a biscuit eater. Oh, there she is. Yeah, teach him son of a biscuit eater. That one's always funny. We lost your sound, Gail. Can't hear you. Or is it just me? Can I hear you, Adrian?
I think so.
Can you hear her?
No.
Okay, she
There
figured
we
it
go.
out.
There we go.
Yep, it's once it burps, you got to come back in and come out. Or go out and come back. I seen you waving. Who you waving to?
Ward.
Hey, Ward. I can't like. I don't ever see that. Well, on my phone, I have to like leave this page to see the chat. So
There we
I apologize that I don't respond to people.
go. I try to put it up. Usually I was sharing.
It's come here.
Here we
As
go.
you see,
I'll
Find
be
it.
back.
There we go. Oh,
Hi, Mama Kitty.
she is such a pain in the ass.
That's a
She's,
Siamese horse.
yeah, she's needy. Um, she just wants to be up in your business. And as y'all, she's outside now. She's not supposed to
But
be
you are.
outside. Exactly.
that's
So, but
I
she does pretty good with her kids. She'll go away from them for a couple hours, but then she wants back in there. And
She's so dang pretty. I really like her. Just
she,
unusual coloring.
She is. Yep.
yeah, oh, some of her kittens have got them eyebrows like she's got. At least one of them looks like it's gonna have. They're so dang cute.
Yes, they are.
You can't keep them all. You're not allowed.
I could hear a dog barking in the distance. Want to make sure it wasn't one of mine doing something stupid. Um, it's hard to hear anything over the freaking cicadas. I mean, it is unbelievable.
You're going to think you went deaf when they stop.
That's what I was telling Adrian before you got on. That yesterday, before the storms hit, yeah, they went completely quiet, and it was eerie because I've been hearing it now for what, at least 7 8 days like this, and
Right.
to have them go completely quiet like that. They get quiet, at least the ones down here around me, in the evening for a few hours, but I could still hear them off in the distance. I
Right.
was listening to a podcast yesterday, a guy at the Smithsonian that, this is what he does. Excuse me, I'm going to get a drink of my choke here. Anyway, I was listening to this thing yesterday, and he talked about the complete, life cycle, of them and all this stuff. So apparently, when they get up into trees like this, it's called chorusing. They're singing, but those are actually about a week old when they start that singing. So it takes them, from the time they hatch out and turn black and start climbing up. They get up to the top of the trees, and a flock of them, or whatever you want to call them, will group together and sync up in their song until a female comes along and mates with them. So I'm assuming that these times that they kind of go quiet around here, they're off having their sweet cicada love. And once they start kind of waking up and singing again, it's the ones that are getting old enough to get up there and start all over again.
That's funny.
And I don't know what the deal is, why they're coming to my driveway to die.
You got
That,
white
y'all, is
driveway,
fucking
right?
eerie.
Do you have
I got
white stone
what?
way?
Yeah.
It gets
Well,
warm.
it's light. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, that
Maybe.
makes
I mean,
sense.
it's
Well, that
not for
makes sense that they would show up there on the concrete because there's like a little concrete slab going right in the garage door and
mm-hmm.
then again to the gravel. So, yeah, that would make sense.
There maybe the heat or the light that they're attracted to.
It's like a puddle of them, literally. Yesterday, you could not. Lenny went to the store. He's been home all week. His hip is bothering him bad. But he went to the store yesterday morning and they were crunching under his feet.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do crawly things, spite that shit grosses him out. And he's like, I'm never going outside again.
It's weird. I'm not afraid of any of that creepy crawly stuff. I have brothers. There's no way I could have survived if I was afraid of
Yeah.
that. But the sound of it would just creep me out. Just
Well,
knowing that they're
that's,
splitting
you know,
open.
when I first logged on, sat down here, and one fell, it got screaming, and they're flying all. I mean, literally, I could see hundreds of them out here flying around tree to tree in the pastures out here, and they're kind of stupid flyers, and if you're in their path, they hit you, and
They're clumsy.
when there's that many of them, we have cicadas every year, you'll see one or two little carcasses around, here or there, those shells. But I mean, I've got them by the pounds.
That's wild. I mean, the ones up here, so it's a different variety because ours are green.
Well, we get
Really,
the green ones down here too.
yeah.
Those are the ones that we see every now and then. My husband has asked me to go in and change the music for him, so um, we'll
I
keep
think those are
talking.
the
But
locusts.
it's just said that like they're in the yard.
Yeah, wild.
It's just they're dead. These. It's just insane. Um, yeah, this is the part that bothers me. It's,
Weird. Just wild.
Crunch.
I know, bro. It's insane. It's insane the amount.
Have you had snakes coming up in your yard?
Knock on wood, I've not seen any. I'm sure they're out there in the pond, around that grassy area. but I've been keeping my grass cut down. I'm gonna mute y'all for a minute because see when I open the door, let me go change the station for him.
That's just, we don't get any kind of like bug invasion like that where it's too cold up here. Like, because things freeze in the wintertime, you know? I'm sure you get that too in Colorado.
You would think, but we've already got flies coming in the house when we open the door.
It wasn't cold enough this winter.
Mhm.
I'm like a mosquito magnet. I'm waiting for those little buggers to hatch. I already got bit once, but typically if I go out on the porch without some kind of repellent on it, I come back and look like I need to go to the hospital. They just love my blood for some reason.
We have a pond out here, and that one, I just know what that's going to do. I already know.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't get cold enough to kill all them eggs off. That's the problem.
No.
But then again, look at me. I'm still in a hoodie. It was 50 degrees last night. I thought I was going to have to turn my heat back on. It just was chilly and damp from the rain.
Yeah, we've been getting 70-degree weather in the daytime, so.
Not yet. I'm not there yet.
30 at night? Yeah, like 34.
Yeah. Michigan's weird because the lakes being around it, it can either keep us really cool or it can get us like once those lakes heat up, it's like a greenhouse and it just won't let up.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to do this year. It's kind of staying cool longer. And I haven't had very many flowers open or anything like that yet.
I can do without it. What happened to Terry? Hi, Ed. How you doing?
I don't know what happened to Terry.
There she is. Now they're loud.
Oh, you can hear them. See, I'm out here under the tree.
Oh, yeah, you can hear them.
Like that. They like that tree.
Terry and the aliens are back.
Yeah, the spaceship is here to get me.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, Ed. I want to know about the investigation when you're done.
Well, hang on. Let me get my glasses on. What's it say?
Where are they going?
He is always going somewhere. Always.
Ew. Yeah, you'll have to let us know. Ew, yeah. Ew.
Crunch, crunch, crunch,
Yeah,
crunch.
I got to get back on my little concrete pad here. I can at least see where I'm stepping.
I couldn't, no. Location in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Ooh, that's cool.
Sounds good.
If you put pictures up or you do a live, tag me.
Oh, Jesus, my husband is bitching about the damn radio station again. Hold on. I'm going to unplug my headset. Let y'all, if you want me to mute the sound, hold on. Or do y'all want background noise while you talk for a minute?
It don't matter.
Hold on just a second. I'll be right back, and then we'll start talking about the book.
Okay.
Funny. I haven't found like an investigating team in Michigan that's close enough for me to go with them yet.
Ed does a lot of things. Like he films really well, and he does a lot of things. And we had him on the show. He's very, very interesting with his investigations. He's really good. And if you see his investigations, it's not, he'll debunk before he puts anything out.
See, and that's the way I investigate. Although, because I'm empathic, I also can like get into the woo-woo part of it, of where I'm feeling drawn to this corner because something happened here. But
yeah,
I really like the science part of it, and I like my granddaughter is also way into it, so I bought her an EVP for her birthday and a digital voice recorder, and so we're just gonna try and find some places, and her and I go.
Anymore, I don't even. I mean, yes, I'll take some equipment, but I forget to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you're intuitive, that happens. I mean, her mom was telling me that she was taking her for a ride one day, and there was like this kind of ramshackle building over to the side that was kind of tumbling over. And my granddaughter said, "You need to stop." And mind you, she's like 16. So her mom's like, "Why?" you know? And she says, "You need to stop because somebody's trapped there and I need to let them know they can move." And she did it. And I was like, "I'm so impressed with you. You're like what I was when I was a kid, but times 10,
Yeah.
and she'll call me and ask me about what candles to use and certain things like that, but she's really intuitive, and she has been since she was able to talk, really.
Wow.
I know when we were doing a spirit fire for my husband when he passed away, which is just, a fire, and you put food in it and stuff. You've been around the native stuff before.
Is it like holding the fire for 24 hours like some tribes do?
Well, they do that when they pass, but every year for 4 years you light a shorter fire,
Oh.
and you put clothes in it for them and food in it for them because they're still walking to the spirit land.
Oh,
So
that I didn't know.
yeah, and anyways, we're doing it like I think it was the first or second year, and she's like 4, maybe 5, and she toddles in the house and she goes, "Papa wants his beads," and I'm like, "What?" And she said, "Papa wants his beads and some needle and thread." And I was like, "Okay." And I went and searched up his stuff, and out we went and put it in the fire. But she was getting stronger messages than I was at the time.
Wow.
Just really, it's impressive, but it's also kind of interesting how sometimes that runs in family.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there is absolutely something to that.
Yeah.
I was always told, well, which I know it doesn't run in my family that I know of. They said that my grandma used to, they just recalled one time where she was in the hospital and said she sees a little boy. I chalked it up to she was on morphine or whatever the case might have been.
Yeah.
But her kids, my aunts and uncles, believed that she did see somebody and it was family. But that's as close as I've ever come. Everything I'm doing, have done, I learned. I had to learn.
See, and it's just like I never would have thought that my mom did. But the last day I saw her, and I mean, she was in hospice. So I went up to see her at the hospital. And I'm standing in the room, and she was just talking to me about not feeling good. And I said, "Well, if you see Daddy, you go ahead." And her head just whipped around like, "You see ghosts too?" And I looked right in her eyes. That I've always seen them, Mom. But she was also showing me that she knew.
Yeah.
And it was just the strangest thing because after we didn't have the most wonderful relationship, Terry knows that. But after 60 years of, struggle back and forth with that relationship, and then all of a sudden to know that she knew anything, I was just done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think we can all do it. If it runs in the family, it's natural. You don't learn nothing. You've already got it. But I had to learn from square one because apparently, probably when I was younger, I was told, no, you don't see that. And so you don't.
yeah, that happened.
Yep, I blocked it. I blocked
I
it.
did for a while too, and that made for one cranky teenager. I don't know about you, Tara, but I was really resentful that it was happening anyways. And I was told to block it, but I couldn't block it. So it was still operating in the background. I used to tell people it felt like there was a radio on in my head sometimes. Just
Yeah.
sounds.
Uh-oh.
I think I've got a bad signal today too, so I don't know how well I'm coming in. So I apologize for the interruption. With my, having your husband home is like having a child.
I don't have one of those.
Mine's barking.
He can't, figure out how to go to the Apple Music and put in country music.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I mean, it's like, and then he sets up the, and I'm like, dude, I'm on the podcast. Oh, I forgot. You just asked me 15 minutes ago where I was going, and I'm like outside to do the podcast so I get a signal. Anyway, so today's show, we're talking about bloodstains.
Let's see if I can pull this up.
We've done some witchcraft shows. Now we're gonna, well, broomstick, we'll say. Now we're gonna do some bloodstain talk. I don't know. Jessica McCord, we wouldn't say is a serial killer, quote unquote. I don't know,
Yeah, she's
though.
qualified for serial killer.
So, but then again, Gail, if left unattended on the streets for 20 years, you know, um, obviously she was someone that could do something like that or manipulate someone. We're going to talk a little bit about that. To do such a thing. So, would she be a serial killer, if left unchecked?
Could she be?
Maybe not serial killer, but maybe more what I'm thinking of would be qualified under the Black Widow.
Let me see.
Claim
I
to
will.
kill.
I'll show her picture.
Yeah, she's actually in our intro.
Yep. Yeah. Let me
Yeah.
see.
And Terry, you might want to give the story first, but I can give you my opinion on it.
Yeah, the case that we're talking about. We've talked about this book, a couple of shows. We've kind of give y'all highlights. We're finally here to do it. Death Trap by M. William Phelps. If you've watched any of these crime shows, Snapped, you'll see him. He's on a, he's covered a lot of cases. I will tell y'all, I was directly involved. And then you're like, what? Mike, if you've read the book, if you've not, or you know anything about this case, Michael Upton, I do believe he is listed. And I'm like, y'all, I read this book years ago when it first came out. And I've started it again, but it does piss me off because I would just tell y'all the woman that this book is written about, Jessica McCord, and her husband Jeff McCord. Hey Nigel, welcome to the show. It's always good to see you here. So anyway, her husband Jeff McCord was a Hoover, Alabama police officer, and these two people killed her ex-husband and his new wife, basically, over a custody battle. A good friend of mine, she was actually my best friend, Elizabeth Upton, died, and I blame this case 100%. And we'll get into more of that, as we discuss the case and why I believe that. But this case not only took, Tara and Alan Bates, but it also took Elizabeth Upton too. So, it's been what, let's see, this is 2024. It's been 20,
little bit more than
23 years, since it all began. I want to say I'll find the exact date of when it happened. I'm not.
Let me see if I can do this. This is our murderer. And And why do we have this? Why is it doing this? Close.
Zach. There you
There
go.
she is.
Yeah, there she is. So now, technically, Jessica did not commit the murders. If you believe Alan's confession testimony in court, which is another thing, Mike Upton. I'm looking to see what chapter he was in this book. Mike went to jail for perjury over some shit, over this case. But my thing is if they took Jeff's confession and he said, this is how it happened, this is what we did, and no, Mike and Elizabeth were not involved, Jessica's stepfather was not involved, nobody knew what we were doing except us. So obviously she was already in jail by this time. She went to jury trial. He was smart enough to know, as being a Hoover cop, he was going to go to jail with people he had, been part of their conviction. So he took the plea bargain, to get a little bit better care, I'm sure, in the system. So, that's the thing that pisses me off. And, there's a whole lot of cases going on publicly now where people are talking about being treated unfairly, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know, if you've ever been involved in a criminal case, I have directly, and I have been involved in this one, directly but indirectly, because Elizabeth was my best friend. We worked together, you know, and we're going to kind of go play by play how, this played out. My view of it as when we talk about what happened here. Um, but this woman convinced her Hoover police. I mean, think about that. She convinced her Hoover cop husband to kill her ex-husband and his new wife, and then, basically let her friends, be involved because they believed in him. I mean, and it's just, we're all friends, and I love the two of you dearly. And if either one of you came to me and said, "Oh my God, my ex has been killed. They found the body in freaking Georgia, the next state over from you, you know, and you were telling me, you know, I, you know, I have nothing to do with this. I can't believe this has happened." But, well, of course, I'm going to believe y'all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm especially if I grew up with y'all. I mean, I know your mama. We've spent the night together. And you're looking me dead in the eyes, and you're telling me, no, I'm skeptical. I'm an investigator by nature. Which is what brought me into paranormal investigation. I knew I didn't want to be like a cop and do any of that icky kind of. That's not me. I don't want to be in that kind of shit. So yeah, paranormal investigator, fell right into that brain of mine that has questions and wants to look into things and be skeptical enough to not go, okay, yeah, just because you told me that's true. And plus, your intuition, your intuition. And I would like to trust that my intuition, if my good friend is telling me this, I'm going to believe them. Now, even if it looks a little bit iffy, I might question a little bit, but if you're looking me dead in the eye and you know me, dear, you know I couldn't do this. Well, I mean, I know y'all's soul. I know that you couldn't do this. So, this is where my friend Elizabeth stood with Jessica. And I will say when uh, Elizabeth died, this was still in the beginning of the case. It was still, the grand jury indictments and, all that shit was happening. Jessica had not been to trial. if you read the book, you watched any of these episodes, things that are out there about this case, you know that she wrote letters to the judge, pleading her case that she didn't do this, had her friends write letters. Elizabeth was one of those friends. Elizabeth believed 150%. I mean, I can see her slamming her fist on the counter, our job that day. There's just no way Jessica would have done this. No way. And, here we are today, ladies. 20 plus years later, talking about Jessica absolutely did this. Of course, Elizabeth knows that now. She's dead and gone. But, the morning that she died, she left this world believing in her heart that her friend, that there was no way that she could have done this. Now imagine, fast forward, Jessica's been to trial, found guilty of, by 20 of her peers. Her husband goes to trial next, and before he goes in front of a jury, he takes the plea bargain. So when Mike, we'll talk about that. I don't know how far y'all have gotten in the book. Mike was Elizabeth's husband by the time he got to trial for perjury, because they were trying to pin anybody and everybody around Jessica they could with helping cover up this crime. And so by the time Mike got, on the stand, Jeff Jeff McCord actually took the stand and he confessed 100% of what they did, how they did it, where they got rid of this and that and the other thing. He completely exonerated Mike Upton. Completely. But Mike still had to do like a year in county jail. They did get him work release, but this man, he was I won't, he worked with Alabama Power. He had a big job, union job, great job, and he lost all that because now he's a convicted felon, for something that he did not do. So, that's my spiel, my intake, what I really want to put out on this case. How far did y'all get in the book?
Not as far as him going to work release or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really cover a lot of Mike. I think it talks about, obviously when Jeff and Jessica were arrested, they were arrested at Mike and Elizabeth's home. And I guess we'll kind of go there because I'm sure y'all have gotten at least that far into the case. So the day that happened was, incredible.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Jeremy, what's up?
Hi.
So I'll go back a day before, a couple of days, but I can't remember exactly if it was 24 or 48 hours, but so this all like broke on the news, big fucking story. Hoover police officer and his wife are suspected in murder, for her ex-husband and wife that they've just found their rental car burnt in Georgia. Of course, it's big news. I mean, this is big news. If Birmingham, Alabama, and Hoover are like side by side, Hoover is just kind of like the overflow, of Birmingham. So this was, and Hoover cops kind of have a reputation. They're like they get to leave their city and be out here in Leeds on the highway because they work with the DEA on, these drug trafficking, going interstate drug trafficking shit, right? So the Hoover police are a big fucking deal. So when this broke on the news, you know, Hoover cops. Elizabeth comes to work, and I'd heard it, but at the time I was an area manager for Kodak. I had 3 1 hour photos, one in Birmingham, one in Tuscaloosa, one in Trussville. They were all to travel to all three of them. It was about 4 hour trip. If I just went to all three of them. So, we had busy lives, things going on. Yeah, I heard the story, in the background of my life, but didn't really stop and pay attention. The name McCord sounded familiar, but it didn't register to me until the morning Elizabeth comes in with the Birmingham News and slaps it down on the counter and said, "Did you see this?" And I said, "Yeah, I heard something about it on the news last night." She said, "This is Jessica." Now, y'all know I've got so many Jessicas in my life. My daughter's Jessica. Obviously, I knew this was not my daughter. And I knew when Elizabeth said this was Jessica, this was her friend, Jessica. Jessica worked. Now, I had, like I said, the 1 hour photo labs inside Target. Elizabeth was the area manager for Life Touch Portrait Studios. So she, had her area, and that we met there at this Target that we were both at, Birmingham Target. And Jessica actually worked at that location for Elizabeth. So I seen this woman, I've met this woman. I did not. Now I will tell you, as this progressed, as much as I loved Elizabeth, and she was one of those people that just had the sweetest, most purest, just best intention. She was a child photographer, for God's sakes. You know, Pregnant with her own baby, and she had a heart condition that she was born with. She had taken this medicine, her whole life, came off the medicine to get pregnant. And 8.5 months pregnant, we lost her through this case. But anyway, as I'm saying, this was a child photographer, enjoyed her job. One of those people that, you see them, they get on the floor and they make the noises and they jump up and down and they do. That was Elizabeth, y'all. I mean, it's just the purest heart. And I'm telling you, she, is like, "That's Jessica," tells me that. I look at it, and I read and I'm like, "Holy shit." And I remember that Jessica had been in court, because she still worked in the portrait studio. My daughter, Jessica, worked in the portrait studio too. My daughter was covering McCord's shifts while because now think about it, she was a 911 operator. She was doing all this shit, you know, being a pain in the ass with the law, with her custody shit. So they got rid of her. Her friend Elizabeth was the only one that would hire her, and we've seen the narcissism of currently people getting out there playing the victim that everybody is against me, and this is so unfair. She played that shit with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth gave her the job in the portrait studio. She was a miserable bitch. Some of the pictures y'all show me, where she's got that, like her mugshot, that look on her face, that's the look that was always on her face. I mean, that's not just because I got arrested. She would walk through the freaking door at Target, and if you any kind of empath, feel energy or what, you immediately went, "Whoa," you know. So I never really had much to do with her because I didn't like her just by her walking by. I just didn't want much to do with that person. But my sweet, loving, endearing, Elizabeth was like, "Oh, there's no way she couldn't have done this." I talked to her, after, and Elizabeth's exact words to me. She had talked to Jessica because obviously, Elizabeth is her boss, too, so she's, you know, directly involved in Jessica's day to day life when you're not at work, you know. and supposed to be you got to get someone to cover you, all that shit. So she told Elizabeth that they won. She won everything. Case was thrown out. You know, that was it. Boom. She didn't have no more worries. All this was done and over with. So Elizabeth is telling me, why would you know? And I was like, okay, um, and in my head, then I'm thinking that this just don't really seem. This is not going to be good. And I can remember going home that evening, and telling Lenny, for those that don't know me, that's my husband. I'm telling him, I'm spilling. Oh my God, did you see this? And this is Jessica. My kid works with this bitch. And Lenny's like, stay out of it. Don't get involved. Stay out of it, Terry. And of course, I'm not going to get involved. But obviously, my friend Elizabeth, is talking to me, and I'm not going to tell her, don't talk to me about this. Don't talk to me about this. So I believe it wasn't that day, but the next day, of course, there was some kind of big headline, still in the story. Now, by this time, Jeff and Jessica did kind of disappear, for a few hours, and I don't think Elizabeth really knew that, but the police, other people obviously knew. I don't know exactly, how it went down. I've not read the court documents, all that stuff. But I do know when she got out of court that day with Alan, she they were supposed to meet, and he was supposed to come and get the kids, and that's how she ended up killing him. Was invited him into her home and killed him in her home. She took her kids to her mother's house, and of course, then they did the deed. They drove them. It's not, hey, Jennifer, it's not, I don't know, maybe 3 hours that they went and dumped the bodies and caught the car on fire. They came back, got the kids, and took them down to Florida to her sister's house. And like they did all this, without going to sleep, plus whatever cleanup they did in the home. They had to have done that. I think that they did that probably before they went to Florida. They probably went home, did a little cleanup. Um, I one day maybe I'll go get the actual court, his confession and look and see exactly how it went down. Um, but they took the kids down to Florida. When they got back from Florida, the police were already searching their home, like it was on live TV that day when I got home. That they were carrying evidence, out of their house. Elizabeth and I had talked that day. We had been back and forth in the break room at noon, looking to see, what was breaking on the news about it. The whole time, she's talked to Jessica on the phone. Jessica, oh, everything's fine. Hey, Jeff's a cop. The press is blowing. Fake news. Fake news. I swear to God. I heard it way back when, before 2016. It really, that was her story, that was all fake. They were blowing it up, what they were doing it for ratings. But Jeff has already talked to his captain. Everything is fine. So I've, left her that day, from work. And that was the story. When I got home from work, it was probably the 6 o'clock news was on. And they are talking, there's now a warrant for Jeff and Jessica's arrest, blah, 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 blah. So I call, Elizabeth. I'm like, girl, they're saying, and she said, honey, I swear to you, it's all fine. It's fake news. I'm sitting right here with them. at Joe's Crab Shack. I'm like, what the fuck are you? And she's like, nah, it's fine. Jeff has talked to his captain. This is fake news. The news is doing it for ratings, and they're turning themselves in tomorrow. They're going to go, and you'll see it. It'll all be, released. It'll be let go. It'll be fine. And I think in that conversation, she said, I know she did, that they were going to come stay at her house because Hoover police, is obviously in their home searching, and they, can't go home now. The press is there, blah, 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 blah. So, yes, they're hiding from the press, but no, they're not hiding. Hoover police know right where they're at. I wanted to puke. I wanted to vomit. I did not feel good about that at all. Not at all. And the very next morning, my photo lab opened an hour earlier than the portrait studio. So, of course, this has been on TV, all night long, first thing in the morning. This is all, the news is talking about. I mean, this is big news. Like I said, Hoover police have got a reputation. And now this man is wanted for in connection to two burning bodies that are the ex-husband and the current wife of his current wife's ex. I mean, so yes, it was big news. I am pacing. She gets to work, and when she walks through that door, I'm like, girl, tell me they were not still at your house. Oh yeah, they're there, they're getting ready, blah blah blah. They're taking a shower. They don't have to turn themselves into the captain. I think she said it at lunchtime. I'm like, Elizabeth, have you seen it? And I'm telling you, they are wanted. Like, they are searching. They're searching for these people. Please call home and tell Mike to make them leave now. Make them leave now. And she's, still giving me, I said, I don't care if they're in it, Elizabeth, for my heart, we had that kind of connection. I'm like, I'm telling you, I've got a bad feeling about this. You need to make them leave your house right now. And at Target, we had, because we didn't work for Target, we had, I had the photo lab phone. She had the portrait studio phone. Any other day, unless it's an emergency, we never touched, we called it the hotline. We hated that fucking red phone, the Target phone. Don't use the red phone. Don't touch the red phone, because technically we weren't Target employees, so we wouldn't even fucking answer it. Even if they were calling the portrait studio or the photo lab, they needed our direct lines. We did not have to touch the red line. But, at that counter, my red phone was right there. And I took it out. I'm like, please, please call Mike right now and tell him, ask them to leave. And she does. She dials the number. He answers the phone. She said, Mike, ask him what they were doing. And he said, honey, I have to let you go. SWAT is entering our home. And then, of course, breaking news, we went to the break room and we watched them taking Jeff and Jessica out of Elizabeth's home on TV. And I can't remember exactly how many months later it was, but Elizabeth died, June 3rd, 2021, 2001, 100% believing, 100% believing. It was 2000, I'm sorry. I do have brain block about these dates and stuff. June 3rd, it was 15 days before her birthday, and about 2-3 weeks before her due date with their baby. And she went to her grave believing that Jeff and Jessica were innocent. Mike, her husband, same. Now, he and Jessica actually went back farther. They all went to, elementary, high school, all that together. Jeff or Mike and Jessica grew up in the same neighborhood, same. Her mother still lives down the road from his mother. So when they say that poor Jessica grew up and she had this hard life, but maybe she did, but she was so little she don't remember because they moved to Cahaba Heights. Cahaba Heights is a pretty poo poo area. It's not like she had this hard life. She didn't fit in, maybe because it's right on the edge of Mountain Brook. And if Mountain Brook sounds familiar to anyone, that's where Natalie Holloway was from. The big case, Natalie on. So Mountain Brook and Cahaba Heights are, right there. These kids go to the same schools and all that. So she may not have been hoity-toity as some of the Mountain Brook kids, but she was right in the same line as the Cahaba Heights kids, Mike and Elizabeth and all them. My kids didn't grow up. We couldn't afford to live in Cahaba Heights, so
I'm just gonna Jack, that's pretty typical of a narcissistic personality to trust me. I was married to somebody that has still DID and narcissistic personality disorder, among other things. They always have that story about their childhood being so awful and so deprived. And I will tell you, he grew up 3 blocks from me. We lived in suburbia. That's
right.
suburb. I mean, it was no different for him than anybody else.
Right.
And he still tells that story. So it's pretty typical for a narcissist to present that false, horrible childhood.
Right. Now, I will say, going back, picking up the book again, it did register to me, that, oh, yeah, just before all this shit, that she and Jeff did, her biological father picked up the phone, somewhere in Bumfuck, Tennessee, and called the police and said, I've just, basically send somebody because I've killed my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I imagine, what would that do to your psyche, but she didn't really grow up with this man. She had his stepfather. And, I would say he is another one. The stepfather died, in this, he died before Elizabeth did of a heart attack. They were going after him. For some reason, they had it in their head that she had some kind of storage facility where she must have hidden furniture and shit. And so that's what her dad and her stepdad, when I say her dad, the dad she grew up with, her dad and Mike and Elizabeth were brought in and questioned, about all these, helping get rid of the evidence, helping clear the house and all this stuff. Well, of course, Mike and Elizabeth didn't know anything about it. Now, I couldn't 100% vouch for Mike, but I could definitely 100% vouch for Elizabeth because, we were working, we were at work, we were handling business. Now, I know it was in the evening, sometime, I think he was supposed to meet and pick up the kids. Alan Bates, I'm talking about, Jessica's ex-husband. I believe he was supposed to pick up the kids from her house around 5 or 6 p.m. And of course, when he got there, Jessica invited him in. All the kids want to do a play for you, some bullshit. And got him in there, and her husband, Jeff, comes out and shoots him in cold blood. Now, I know I've done a whole lot of talking here on this, and we're at the end of our show. But before, I definitely want to hear, what do y'all think of all that shit?
Did Jessica er, okay, so Jessica, the way I understood it, Jessica went to court. She did not get full custody of her children.
Right.
And so, did your friend ever realize that she did not get full custody of her children?
So
No.
I picked that up too. There's another thing that's typical with narcissists is pathological lying. And in reading the book, that the parts that I did and watching the clips that I did, she has that pattern also.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh yeah.
and from early on, like that's way before she was married to Jeff, that this is from childhood. She was getting away with this stuff.
Oh, and that's what I was gonna say. I don't know her mom or her stepdad yet, but I do remember Elizabeth. Because Elizabeth was still alive. When it was, of course, Jeff and Jessica were in jail. When there was any kind of pretrial motions, whenever shit was brought up, we would talk about Jessica and how she grew up, things that they did when they were kids. I do know, and Elizabeth never said this, but I mean, you read between the lines and you hear, and I was an outsider looking in. I already knew that they did this. There was no doubt in my mind. I already knew that they did this, but I wasn't saying that to Elizabeth. I was just being a good friend and listening to her. But just by what I know about the relationship that Jessica had with her mom, she manipulated her mom from an early age. Her mom, she would dump those kids off on her mom, and she would, leave for the fucking weekend and disappear and shit. And, you know, now as a grandma, I will take my kids any damn weekend, but you ain't gonna just dump them.
Yeah.
And I don't know where you're just out partying. I can tell you when my grandkids are here, probably the only thing my girls are doing is sitting at home, going to the bathroom without a kid up their ass. But Jessica would be out partying, manipulating men. Now the numerous abortions that they say I question that too. I think, yeah, there might have been one or two. But I think that maybe she used that as just another story, another feel sorry for me. I've had to do this, or I just don't believe that if she was kicked out of abortion clinics in Alabama, I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that. If she really couldn't get an abortion in Alabama, I'm going to say it was probably more to do with her attitude. Because, I mean, she really did, present herself. And I guess she knew that she couldn't come off to me that way because she, wanted to command, just everything around her. And no, baby.
I think that I would love to see the actual court case, because typically if they say that those abortions happened, there's records to corroborate that, or it would never get into the case, because they're very protective. You're innocent, guilty.
Right.
And so if it entered into the case, I would say that there's records. I just looking at the whole thing, that from childhood to adulthood, when she's got a pathological lying disorder going on. She's got narcissistic personality disorder going on. She's way manipulative. Where she learned that from, I could guess, but I couldn't tell you for sure because there's no formula for that. As far as being a serial killer,
Well, like I said, maybe more like a Black Widow,
yeah, I
someone
could
that
see her going on and getting married again and manipulating again with the kids, but that's not really a serial killer. This was a double homicide, period. It wasn't even a spree killing, because
right.
that would require, like, if she killed these two people and then went to her mom and dad's and killed them, then I'd
Right.
call her a spree killer.
Right.
But she's got all kind. I was married to a male version of her. Um, so she's got all kinds of manipulating control issues going on. She and the writing to the judges, that's more of that. And I chuckled when I read, that she had done that. It was like, holy crap, that takes some cojones. I mean, just like you think you can tell the judge what to do, but then we're watching some of that happen in real life. Um,
Right.
so
Yeah, right.
it is screaming narcissism. The whole thing using your kids as pawns like that is also very narcissistic, which I experienced in my own personal life. It and I will tell you that there was no way in hell, poor Elizabeth, because she was just being gullible. No way in hell that a judge would give complete and total custody to the mom ever. I had a husband that was certifiably insane, literally, and I still had to let my kids go see him from 8 to 6 every Sunday.
Right. Right.
There's just no way, if both parents are alive, that would ever happen. And
Well, I think what Elizabeth believed was because, Alan, I think, was suing for custody because,
yeah,
this had gone on. And so I believe Elizabeth believed Jessica won the custody battle. They were not going to remove the kids from her custody, but that there would be visitation.
there would even
She would
he
have
won.
to agree.
Even if he won the case, she would get visitation.
Right, right.
Even
You
if he
know,
won the proof that she was crazy, which he probably could have done given enough
right,
time.
right.
But they would still have contact with that other parent. In Michigan, a rape victim still has to give a visitation if the rapist asks for it. Yeah, they never do, but it's on the books still. It needs to be taken off the books.
I just,
Yeah.
I can't, because of course, that hits me, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show, I have been part of a criminal case. And the criminal case that I was involved in, I was the rape victim. And, being 16,
Yep.
just turned 16. I was, just turned 16. So I can't even really say I was 16, Um, and being told, you're very fertile. And I can remember them saying, you're very fertile. And, we have this pill we can send. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm very fertile? Now, don't think that I was stupid and naive and I didn't understand,
Yeah.
how the reproductive system and all that worked. But in the shock, of all that, I needed them to explain to me, you know, your ovaries have possibly released eggs, and there's a possibility that you could be pregnant by this man.
Yeah.
And, I won't go into, we'll talk about that case, another day. I had arguments to why, no way, that could not be. They had arguments to, yeah, it could. And so I was like, oh God, no. And yes, give me as many of them pills as you want to give me. And then they
Yeah.
offered me, now I want, people out there because this is a hot political topic right now.
Yeah.
This is a hot political topic. So I'm going to say to everyone in this fucking world, I am a 57, almost 58-year-old woman. I was kidnapped. I was raped. I had horrific things happen to me. This is not bullshit. This is not, I've had the lie detectors. I've been on the stand and testified. The man was found guilty. The evidence, the DNA, everything was there, you know. And I'm telling y'all, this was 1982. 1982. Doctors told me, Terry, we can go ahead and make an appointment for you now so that if you don't start your period in 2 weeks, you just run on up to the hospital in Iowa City. This happened in Davenport, Iowa. You're just going to run on up to the hospital in Iowa City and they're going to do a DNC. They explained to me what it was. They told me we don't even have to do a pregnancy test. We'll never even know. If you don't start your period, we're going to scrape the lining of your uterus, get your period going. And I was like, make that appointment. Make that appointment. So I did take, I can't remember. I'm thinking that it was like I had to take one pill that night and then maybe they gave me another one in the morning before they released me from the hospital.
Yeah.
It's been so long ago, y'all. I mean, that's, 40 fucking years ago.
We now call it the morning after pill.
Right, right. And it's really not something, that, I sit around dwelling about to remember every gory detail of it. So, I don't really remember, but I do know there was at least one pill involved, maybe two, maybe three, but I don't remember. But, the good news was within about 4 or 5 days, I did start my period. I didn't have to do that, but I will say it to the world. I absolutely would have. I wouldn't have even thought a second thing about it. And the idea that there are states that will make you have to let this man that raped you and got you pregnant, that is fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
That is horrifying.
Well,
I cannot even imagine.
Michigan's laws are confusing because we are one of the states that codified abortion rights, but yet this old law is still on the books that if you raped and carried the baby to term, that man can ask for visitation.
It's probably just something kind of stupid because let's not forget that, back in the day, we would marry off, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls to 50-year-old women or men to get them out of the home because either we got too many girls and they can't work the farm, we're feeding too many mouths, whatever the case may be. And we are not that far removed from that, people. I mean, people take for granted, but go back and look at your ancestry. Look at, your great grandmothers. If you're my age and Gail's age, if you're our age, just
no, I'm old, Mama.
Well, yeah.
I'm teasing.
What I'm saying, we look at like my great grandma, or and my great grandma, sent them girls off the farm, in the 30s and 40s and stuff, because she lived in fucking Michigan. It was cold, and she had a 100-acre farm, and if you weren't big enough to work the farm, you didn't stay on the farm. So young girls were basically fucking farmed out as property, and so I think that's how laws like that, got in place to begin with, because men had all the power, men had all the power. And some girls said, you rape me, you're not going to conceive this baby. And some fucking man said, yes, I am. And they put that shit in the law books. So we need to fight and get shit like that removed.
Also a law that says we can't torture elephants, so there, I mean, it's just, there's really archaic, insane laws that are stuck in the books that who the hell knows why.
We have Alabama. I don't know if it's still on the books. This was, back in the day when internet first came out, when you could start looking up, start Googling shit. We had heard something on the radio. They were talking about Alabama stupid laws or something. And of course, I did not believe it and went and looked it up. And it is illegal in Alabama to carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket on Sunday.
Yep, yep, and that's here too. And there's also you can't take a bath with a goat.
Nice.
You can't
there's
wear high
that
heels.
one.
You can't wear high heels downtown Mobile, Alabama. Um, but yeah, I always have to go to the ice cream cone in the back pocket on Sunday. So the other
So,
6 days, a week, you can.
yeah.
I'd like to
Trust me,
what happened to
when
make
I
that
heard
happen.
about the rape thing, though, I did run for the law books because I had to know if that's true. It's actually true in, I believe, 31 states.
Probably Alabama.
No doubt.
Probably Alabama.
But, what can I say? At least I can get an abortion. And you guys, I know you're past
Can't.
that age, but if anybody needs one, you need to tell them Michigan's okay. And Terry, I get it. I was a victim of rape too. I mean, I've been through that, and I was older, but I am old.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how old you are. But just the idea, I've got,
Mhm.
4 granddaughters,
Yeah,
and the idea, and it doesn't even have to be something as drastic as rape, I
yeah,
can speak for myself, never had an abortion, but, there were, the boyfriend that I was with before Lenny, I was not on any kind of pill or nothing, and he
yeah.
was a monster. He was a monster, Now I'm not saying had I gotten pregnant by him, I would have had an abortion, but if I had the option,
Right,
I had the
right.
option should an accident happen, and these people that get on this bandwagon and women do it for birth control, y'all check on the price of an abortion, and really look into it. The people
I
that
have,
you
I
the
have
people that
seen.
they want to classify as saying they use it for abortion. Now let's break that down for a minute. I have to, because they want to say, these are the people living in poverty, or the prostitute kind of.
They can't afford it.
They can't fucking afford it. They can't afford it. So
I
I
have
promise
seen
you, those people are
is
doing their best not to get pregnant if
yeah.
they don't want to get pregnant.
Birth control pills are a hell of a lot cheaper than an abortion or any
Condoms,
control.
yeah. I mean, I know nothing is 100% on birth control, but you can double up and better your chance,
Right. And actually, if you're talking about working girls, generally that's what they do. But and I'm very pro-choice. I'm also anti-abortion for birth control pills, if that's what you're talking about. But it's really not realistic. And
Right.
like you said, who the hell could have? That's what 50 years ago it was $300. I can't even imagine how much it costs now to get an abortion.
Right. And, I now if I had to, if I had to for whatever, I could come up with $300. But let's just be real. If I was, in my 20s, fertile myrtle right now,
Yeah,
even at $300, that's not just something I could just go, oh well, let me get $300 and go get an abortion.
right.
No, no,
Like it's a
So
chunk of somebody's normal income, a huge chunk. And
right,
it's wild when
right.
I hear people talk like this. Thank goodness my girls grew up with Miss Woman's Lib here and they know all about how to not get pregnant. Um, but that doesn't apply to, I know a dozen people whose kids had babies real, real young and didn't know. And some of them not under good circumstances.
Well,
You know,
I'm not gonna totally out this person, but I will just say, um, someone, and I'll tell y'all who it is. You might figure it out. I don't have sons, so obviously we know it's not, me. But this person is very close to me, had the good Christian upbringing. And he and his high school sweetheart went away to, lo and behold, Christian camp, and now they have a 20-year-old daughter.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
and that they were high school sweethearts. You know, they didn't even make it to the end of her pregnancy. Now, obviously, her family was also very Christian. You know, the kids were at church camp. You know,
Yeah.
when the one came home pregnant, and they didn't even make it to the end of the pregnancy. I mean, I don't even think she knew she was pregnant by the time they broke up. You know, it was kids do things, you know, and had that been my child, because my child is about these people's age now, had that been my child, I mean, I would have immediately, you know, at least I wouldn't have made them do it. You know, it's 17, 18 years old. They're definitely old enough to understand them, you know, maybe not quite the repercussions of what this means that you're going to have a baby, you know,
Yeah.
but you could at least sit them down and say, you know, there's no way I would have ever said to my child, "You're gonna have this baby." And I think this young woman was put in that because of religious beliefs. You're gonna have this baby, and now she didn't raise that baby. You know, her parents did, and then the baby got to be 14, and it started rebelling against the old Christian upbringing. So now we're gonna have a repeated cycle. You know, I see that coming. You know,
Oh yeah.
um, so it's, you know, it's not working out great, y'all. That we're shutting this down. I mean, I'm not talking to you, lady. I'm talking to the world out there. This is not working out great. You know, and if you live in a state where it's still legal, you know, count your blessings, because you may not think it affects you, but it affects every one of us. It affects every one of us. Yeah.
Somebody you will need that. The the thing is it's never us until it is us.
Well,
And then
well, and when all this, you know, back in, I guess it was 2018, 2019, you know, when when they first started talking about taking it off the books here, um, I got in a big argument with a guy at my local feed store. In fact, I quit using his store that day because, you know, we got into, I was on my way to go protest and I went to pay my feed bill. And of course, I was in my red dress. I protested in the handmade tail dress. And I didn't have the hood on and all that. I just went in the red dress, and because that's not my normal wear, I'm usually a jeans t-shirt. You know, oh, where are you dressed up to go to? When I said, well, needless to say, you know, he was, you know, pro-life, and I brought it up. I like Googled and I showed him how many kids are in foster care in Alabama that
Mhm.
day,
oh,
waiting to be adopted. And Adrian, I think this was right around the same time, because I'm pretty sure that I even threw it up to him that I've got a friend in fucking Colorado that's taking kids from Alabama, you know, because nobody in Alabama wants them. So what are we going to do with all of them? We're going to make women have them, and when they don't want them, what's going to happen to them?
Mhm.
What happens to them?
Yep.
well, and if like I've been dirt poor single mom and I can tell you how hard it is to raise them.
Mhm.
So I was committed to raising mine. But the thing is, if I told you guys what I had to do to keep them together, you would probably put me up for sainthood. Because some of the tricks I had to pull to just keep them fed, just keep them fed.
Oh, I get it. You know, I mean, I've always had money. You know, I will say that, but you know, we were dirt poor at times. You know,
Hmm.
and our second child came a year and 26 days later after the first one. You know, we
Yeah.
were 19, 20 years old. We did not plan it that way. And the day that he came home and found me snot bubble crying on the porch because I just found out I was pregnant and I've got a 3 month old, you know, because your brain, even though you know it's going to be 9 months, your brain, you're like, oh my God, I can't do another baby, you know. Um, um, and the first thing my Catholic raised, you know, 5 siblings husband said to me, well, honey, if you want to get an abortion, you know, I'll understand. You know, of course, no, we can't, you know, because for me, that was not an option. You know, I mean, that was a baby that we created. We loved each other like you, Gail. We'll suck it up and we'll make it happen. You know,
Yeah.
but you know, if it had been a rape situation,
Yeah.
you know, ain't no doubt in my mind, you know, I
Right.
am not carrying a baby. And I've had people say that, you know, when I stated my stance on that, well, that baby would be part of you. I no, it wouldn't. Because
No
if
choice.
someone rapes you, yeah,
Yeah.
your egg may be part of that, but you for me disconnect. You know,
Yeah.
that is I would I could sit here today, and I know people say, well, if you've never been there and it hadn't happened, I have been almost there, and I could tell you if it had happened, I would have aborted it. Wouldn't have had a second thought about it. Wouldn't have bothered me a bit. And I don't that wasn't a fucking cicada. um, so, anyway, ladies, we've gone way over and we've covered a lot of shit today.
Good.
I'm gonna have to get going because I know I have a kid coming in here with her dog, which is
Yeah.
even bigger than my dog. Um
Yeah, I got it. You know, we're doing the community yard sale today. Let me plug that quick. Community yard sale for anybody in Alabama, downtown Vincent, from 9 to 2 tomorrow. They're doing community yard sale. Vendors will be there. Food trucks will be there. I think they're going to have music, plant sales. So if you need to get your mom plants, I also want to do a shameless plug for my friend Monica that did the coolest freaking decal for my cup. Monica Rice, if you want one of these on Facebook. I can never aim it towards my camera the right way. They're like $5.50. They're amazing. She has different colors. And also, Adrian, let's plug it.
What's that?
Plug your business. Plug your business, honey.
Oh,
Tell them,
I haven't really got it out there yet.
well, tell us the name. Tell us a little bit about it. And Gail, if
uh,
you need to check out on us, feel free to go.
yeah, it's Panacea Healing and Spirit Connections. I will. I'll put the page up in the Bloodstains and Broomsticks page. But yeah, it's just one of those. You can. We do Reiki. We do mediumship. We do tarot readings. There's all crystal healing. There's all kinds of things on there. So yeah,
Animal Reiki, you know, plant Reiki, you know, plant, you know, Adrian will hook you up with the Reiki.
I need to do some on one of mine. The poor little thing. I planted it and it's not doing good. I took it outside too soon.
well listen,
Uh
ladies,
oh.
I'm going, but I want to wish all you mamas happy Mother's Day.
Yes,
Happy
yes.
Mother's
I,
Day to you too, Gail.
I'll talk
And
to you
yes,
soon.
all right, honey. Well, next Friday we'll get together on what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
All
All right.
right, y'all. Thank y'all for being here, and
Thank
we
y'all
will.
for being here. Read the book if you're interested in what we talked about. Death Trap, M. William Phelps. Um, I mean, if you're into these kind of books, it's a good book. You know, I will say as I know that this is his thing, this is his niche. There's
Yeah.
something about him that I don't like. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is. You know, maybe part of it is he didn't even try to contact Mike, when he wrote the book. And
Yeah.
he didn't, he obviously did not read court documents thoroughly because,
No.
like I said in the beginning, if they took Jeff's testimony and he's convicted on that, you know, and I know that, yes, Mike stumbled. I guess I will wrap that piece up before we end the show. When Mike was in the grand jury, because if you're in a criminal case, if you're a potential witness or involved, you're going to be called in front of the grand jury. So Mike and Elizabeth were called in front of the grand jury. Because Elizabeth was a high risk pregnancy, their lawyer, basically told the grand jury they questioned her for about 20 minutes. And her blood pressure shot up, and she was about 7, 8 months pregnant then. And cicada flying in at me. And she, the lawyer told the grand jury and Hoover
Nothing else.
police and all these people, basically, if anything happens to my client because y'all are putting this pressure on her, I'm gonna come back and sue. So
Yep.
Elizabeth never had to go in front of the grand jury again, but Mike did, and they asked him. They said some. Asking him, they'd ask him about a storage unit that Jessica owned, and he said, I don't know anything about a storage unit. And um, of course, he was had already lost his job, by all this time, and we were pretty much neighbors. They just lived around the corner, But so I was in contact with him every day during this. And he'd come home and he'd said they were hitting me on a storage shed, a storage unit, a unit. And he's like, I can't think, to my knowledge, there's no storage unit. So anyway, it comes out during, I guess, Jeff's trial because yes, Jeff said what they did. It came out something about Jessica having a storage shed, like in the backyard of her mother's house, that
Mm.
Mike, years before, Mike had helped her move this set of bunk beds into this storage shed. So when they questioned him about a storage unit that belonged to her, he said, I don't know anything about it. He wasn't thinking about this shed in her mom's backyard, so they found him guilty of perjury. Now, really, all it was, they had a hard on for Mike and Elizabeth because they arrested them at that house.
Yep.
But they were not part of the cover up. They 100%. It says, I know that it does say this, I think in the Birmingham News, the day that Jeff was testifying in Mike's trial, the reporter says Mike Upton sat at the defendant table, snot bubble crying. He lost his fucking wife, he lost his baby, and now these people that they 100% believed were innocent, he's listening to what they did to these people.
Yeah.
But and so Mike ended up doing like a year in work release. He worked for me and my husband as a driver for Pizza Hut. I imagine to have to go from, working for Alabama Power. He was like those big fucking poles and shit. He worked up there attaching that shit. You know, he had a hell of a job and lost it all because of
Yeah.
his friendship with Jessica McCord.
Yeah.
So that's my bitch, my hour and a half bitch on this woman. She destroyed a lot of lives because of her greed and our narcissism, you know, and what's happening in the world today, people should wake up and pay attention.
Yep.
You know, the, uh, the amount of narcissism that's just in our face is unreal.
It
So,
is.
on that note, I'm gonna go back to getting this stuff ready for the yard sale tomorrow and watching cicadas. A big bird just came down and picked one out of the yard.
All right. Well, I will let you do that, and I will see you on Messenger later.
Bye, y'all. Everybody have a great weekend. Happy Mother's excuse me. Happy Mother's Day to all the mamas, the grandmamas, the great grandmamas, and the single dads that have to do it. That have to
That's
be
it.
mama and daddy. We want to recognize y'all too. So peace out, y'all. Bye.
Hey.